All right, good morning. So I posted a photo the other day on social media just talking about what's known as the Orton Effect, where you've got a blurry haze around it to give it a glow, a dreamy look. So I wanted to take a second and demonstrate what I'm doing in camera to give that same effect. I've been doing it since the days of film. I like it with macro. I don't use it as much with landscape. Probably have never used it with landscape, but I'm gonna try it at some point. So what I'm doing today is I've got the Canon EOS RP, because I love mirrorless cameras for macro especially. And I've got the Tamron 90mm macro on the front of it. I love the Tamron lenses, super sharp, and for an effect like this, that's great because you're doing a multiple exposure where you're doing one image sharp and then you're doing a second exposure in camera slightly blurred. I'm shooting at 5.6, 100 ISO. And if you're wondering why I'm using the Canon versus Sony or Nikon or anything else, it's just what I've got on there. But also the Sony A7R III, which I've got, does not have the capability of doing in-camera multiple exposure. So that's a little bit of a problem. Hopefully, I can still do it in the computer, but this is just something easier for me in the field. I can see the effects immediately. And that's just something I like to do. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a couple exposures, and I'm going to video it through the camera itself just to give you an idea of how I do it. But let me go ahead and just set this up and we'll go from there. So as you can see, it's a little bit windy, so this is mainly just for effect. But what I do is I'll get to the right distance, and I don't mind. In this instance, I'm going to go ahead and tilt the camera a little bit to give it a better compositional aid here. In camera, I set it up to do multiple exposure. The number of exposures is 2, and I'm going to have the camera average my exposures together. It's easy enough if you're photographing just 2 exposures to do it yourself and do additive, but averaging, the camera figures it out so whatever your exposure looks right on your screen, averaging takes half of those exposures, puts them together. So it'll underexpose it by 1 stop for each of them. When you put them together, they're good. So I just simply set up and I'll focus on the flower. What I typically like to do is I will use the focus peaking again, like the video we did the other day. I'm going to come in here and zoom in to get my focus just right. Then I would take that off. Now I'm going to go to multiple exposure. I'm going to enable it. And I'm going to do it as continuously versus one simple exposure, because I'm going to be doing several of them here for demonstration purposes. Now I'll go ahead and I'll do my first exposure. Then I will back off just ever so slightly. The problem is with the wind right now. I have to move it a little bit with the wind. The wind is going to make it a little bit tougher because that's something I had not really considered. So let me try it, because the wind shifts it and I'm wanting it to just have a simple glow around the flower. So let me do this real quick. Let's see. So anyway, I'll do a couple in camera here to give you a demonstration, but that's all I basically do is I'm just doing one exposure sharp and then a second exposure slightly out of focus. The more you have it out of focus, the bigger the ring and everything around it, and it looks kind of gaudy. I'll demonstrate that in the video as well. So let's go ahead and switch the mic over to this camera and we'll work from there. All right, I'm gonna have to work a little bit quick. There's some wind out here, but you can see what I simply will do is you can see where I've got the flower set up, and I'm getting some bright highlights behind it. I don't like that necessarily. I'll try to cover them up. But what I would do is I would do one exposure nice and sharp. Let me move to this side so I can cover that spot up a little bit better. I would do one exposure nice and sharp, and then I would just simply back off my focus just a little bit. So one image sharp, and actually you can see the focus peaking in there as well. So I would do one image sharp and then I would back off just a little bit. So let me go ahead and take it out for just a second. I'm going to do a demonstration where if I do one image sharp and I do one slightly blurred, the effect that it gives. Then I do a second one really blurred and let you see the difference there. And you'll see that you'll want to make sure that you're not blurring it too much. So let me switch from camera mode and get a couple stills. We'll put these in the video as well. What I'm learning really quickly is I picked the wrong day to do this, because the wind is blowing just enough, and if the flower is not stationary, then it just becomes a blur, two images on top of each other. There's no distinct lines and everything else. So obviously you need a very, very calm day. I've got images that demonstrate what the effect is and everything else. So I'll probably use those for this video unless the wind calms down before now and when I go inside. But very, very frustrating. Again, just to sum up the way that you do this, you find something very still on a non-windy day. You do one image very, very sharp. You do a second image in camera, multiple exposure, slightly out of focus. And what that will do for you is give you that Orton effect. So I'll see what happens and we'll go from there. Hopefully this wind will die down here real quick. Well, unfortunately, I don't think the wind's going to die down. Really frustrating because it's a beautiful day, beautiful light. Just breezy for some reason. So what I'll do in the video is I'll include the images that I've done prior to this, just to show you one image with the slight effect and the other image defocusing really an extreme amount to show you how that's not the look that you want to get. So sorry for the wind, but I think you'll still get the point. If there's any questions, please leave a comment below and I'll try to answer them. Maybe I'll come back out and do it on a day that's not as windy. I do ask though, hopefully, even though with the wind you like the video, if you did, give me a thumbs up at the end. And as always, if you don't subscribe to my YouTube channel, please do. Until next time, thank you for taking some time today to watch the video, and we'll see you soon.